Let's keep moving. Our next presenter is Jeremy Kahobin, and the long history of residential care is marked by the removal of youth from their families and sometimes relocating them to distant places for significant periods of time. It's a vicious cycle that feeds the system intergenerationally. Residential care needs to work with the community, not compete with it. Hear how Jeremy, president and CEO of the Children's Village in New York, and his team have turned residential care into an emergency room-like program with community investment for families and youth. Let's welcome Jeremy.
Good morning. So there's always a risk when you do a talk like this that I could come across as having figured this out. I want to kind of lay that out first to you and say, we haven't figured out the solution. We think the solution will come from all of us. We are questioning practice. We are doing some experiments. I'm not going to talk about them today because of time limits. You're welcome to go to childrensvillage.org and take a look at some of the articles that have been published about our work. But this is not a speech about all the things we do right. In fact, all the things we do wrong could take 2 days to tell you. So we have our failures. So let me start by giving you a little bit of the history. We were founded in 1848 in New York City by 8 women and a great industrialist, Peter Cooper. It was a time when there was a war on delinquency, and we were not an orphanage. There were about 60 orphanages across the United States at that time. We were the first public-private partnership that focused on this war on delinquency. And so we bought 29 acres in what's today called Washington Heights. It's by Columbia University, and there we built this massive institution in what was then the woods, because New York City was in the lower part of the island, for 1,200 boys. Between 1860 and 1861, that campus was integrated racially. So you can see the kids of color there. By 1898, New York City had grown exponentially. There was no time. There was just no time left, no time and no space left for an institution like Children's Village on the Palisades in Washington Heights, and the city put pressure on the trustees to move the institution. So they moved to Dobbs Ferry, bought 330 acres there, and there, by 1901, they built the first residential treatment center. In fact, in 1915, Father Flanagan came out to Children's Village, met with the board, met with the staff, took the designs, and I think in 1917, he established Boys Town in Nebraska based on his visit at Children's Village. Why do I know this history? Well, Columbia University maintains this stuff, so it's kind of easy to get your hands on this story. But there's another part to our story that's not talked about. We are one of the 3 large agencies that established the orphan train, a train that brought 250,000 children from the East Coast, predominantly from New York City, Boston, and Philadelphia, to places like Minnesota. And here is what happened. When you got to a station, a flyer had already gone out welcoming people to come out and see these kids. You were put on a podium like this one here today, and you were encouraged to sing, dance, or do something to attract attention. And in addition to that, people would actually come out and check your muscles, check your teeth, and check your gums before kids were taken. The last time that happened, by the way, was in West Africa, but here it was happening in the United States. You can't see this small text here, but one of the things that the text says is that these kids were tested to be well-meaning and well-behaved. Can you see the scientific implication there? Now, Children's Village is testing kids before they put them on the train. The truth is this: these kids were not orphans. Many came back to New York because people wouldn't take them. You know, language was what allowed us to get away with the orphan train. The director of Children's Village at that time, that later on went to be our agent in Chicago, was out there as an evangelist talking about these kids, talking about how broken they were, talking about them being feeble-minded. This is a statement that he made in 1912. By 1915, his language had permeated the entire legislature of New York and later the entire country. So there was this momentum that these trains were good. Why? Because these kids are different. There's something wrong with these kids and we got to do something else for them. Who were these kids? Some of you know this answer. They were predominantly poor. Every kid on that orphan train was a poor kid. They were predominantly Irish, immigrants, and Catholic. Or they were non-English speaking European immigrants. Or they were Jewish. That's the story of the orphan train. I'm here to tell you today that while the orphan train ended, we are still doing it. The orphan train still exists. And the station, the entry point, is called foster care. And once you penetrate foster care, you will penetrate juvenile justice. Who are the kids in foster care today? They're not the Irish immigrants, they're not the Catholics, they're not the Jews, they're not the non-English speaking immigrants. They're predominantly poor, and they're of color. And they come from neighborhoods in our communities that we drive past every day, and they have for 40 years. They have for 40 years. Let me tell you how we fail our kids in foster care. A, we fail them by failing their communities, because we are a, thank you, I'll run out of time. we are a part, our sector, we're a part of a systematic disinvestment in those communities. B, we alienate their families, and we intrude so often into their lives that they have no inner strength to be the parents that they need to be. And C, when they come to us, we don't give them what they want. And we don't give them what they really need. We give them what we want to give them. Here's the story of foster care. If you come into foster care today, you'll spend 2 years at least separated from your family. In foster care today, if you're 13 through 21, you will spend 4 years separated from your family. 12% of our kids in foster care have had 5 or more placements. 5 or more placements. 30% are in residential care in places like Children's Village that has no resemblance to family. None whatsoever. We do good work, but we're not family. 100,000 kids are freed for adoption. The few who will be adopted will wait 3.5 years for finalization. But here's the tragedy. If you're a teenager of color, the chances of you being adopted drops to 0. In 2013, 25,000 children will age out of foster care at 18 or 21. The lucky few will go back to the same families that we took them away from and kept them away from. The rest will hit our streets. They will fill our hospitals. There'll be wards of the state. They'll be transient. They'll be in jail. They'll be dead. That's a fact. And it happens every year. Let me talk about services. My friend Eric Bretschneider did this on a case that he worked with in 1972. Things haven't improved much. There's only one thing you should note here. The family wanted housing, we gave them therapy. They asked for housing again, we gave them therapy again. They asked for housing 57 times, and we gave them therapy. Because we love to give people what we have, and then we have the audacity to ask them to be happy. Okay? What's now happening in our communities? Let me tell you how we play a role in our communities. We go into these neighborhoods, right? They're very select, they're poor, and today they're predominantly of color. We go into these neighborhoods, we see something, we take the kids out, we go to our legislature, we ask for money for the services. But here's the problem. The bulk of our services are spent outside the community, so the money never goes back into the community. Things get worse because there's no investment in the community. Investment for what? Investment for the things that you and I want for our own kids, right? Good schools, safe housing, good health care, public spaces and opportunities for our children. Those things don't exist in these neighborhoods because there isn't any money. So things get worse. We go back. We see more because we are very intrusive. We see more. We take more kids out. We ask for more money. See this cycle? You see this? It's happening. And despite our best intentions, we are part of this problem. So everyone is talking about a spend problem. I agree. We have a spend problem. We're just spending the money in the wrong place. No question about it. We have a role to play in this solution. Let me give you a quick example about the kids that are aging out. You've seen this. This is Maslow's hierarchy, right? You know this story. To achieve higher order functioning, you got to meet your basic needs. You see where family comes? And now look at this. Everything, when we talk about success, everything we want for kids happens after they have belonging. Everything. Nothing that we want, nothing that you and I consider success comes prior to that belonging. So how is it that we continue to talk about success with these kids when we don't make sure that they have the kind of belonging? And what do I mean by belonging? One relationship of unconditional commitment. One. That's the magic bullet. Just one. These kids deserve better. We talk about success, but we miss the point. I'm here to tell you what you already know. Success is an attitude of the mind and a longing of the heart. None of us give success to anyone. You work for success. You earn it, you fight for it, you long for it, you think about it. Why are our kids not successful? I'll tell you why. Because their hearts are broken. Because they have no one. Being alone is the worst thing that can happen to you as a human being. Their hearts are broken. They have no one. Why are they not focusing on success? Because their minds are numb, because they know that they're going to age out without anyone. These kids are smart. They're looking all around them and they're saying every other kid has someone. I have no one. They have broken hearts and broken minds and numb minds. Minds that can't think about success. Minds that can't get their arms around the idea of success. And we play a role in this brokenness and in this numbness. And I know we don't want to think about this as often as we should, but this is a real issue. Look, in this great nation, poverty is not the limiting issue. Millions come to this country and rise from poverty to greatness. My family is one of them. Many of you in this room represent that opportunity that this nation provides. So poverty is not the issue that we need to worry about. We need to worry about brokenness and hopelessness and despondency. That's the problem. Our people can rise if we help them through their despondency and hopelessness. Here are things that we believe are absolutely important for kids, and this is in order of priority. If a kid leaves us without a place of belonging and a person of belonging, we have failed. At Children's Village, we fail. I admit it. It happens. But we need to think about this. It cannot be, we cannot accept this as the status quo, that this is okay. When we find that relationship, do what Jim suggested. Let's build those people. Let's build that parenting. Let's build that sense of strength that you need as a parent to help this young person navigate life. Once that is done, give our kids exposure. We have so much to offer as a nation. Millions come here every day. Millions want to come here. And they seek out that exposure and that opportunity. Let's give the same to the kids that we work with. Hold them to high expectations. I don't care what race or color you are, how you dress, how you speak, and how you behave counts against you. That's what I tell my own children. Don't protect our kids from the truth. Tell them the truth and hold them to those high expectations. Success has to come from within them. Success comes from within them and their families, not from us. Prepare them to deal with the things they can't control. Please. Today, the system is black and brown. Talk about race. You don't have to be a person of color to talk about race. You know, I was listening to a speaker who said that racism is like rain. If it's not falling on you, it's gathering somewhere else. You know, I think that's true, but we've come a long way as a nation. My kids will grow up in a world that is so different to the one that I grew up in. I love it. That's what excites me about my citizenship. That's what excites me. But let's teach our kids how to navigate the issue of race. That's no secret. Families of color talk about this all the time. Let's talk to them. Let's give them the truth. And finally, let's tell our kids that living on government benefits is no fulfillment of the American dream. Absolutely not. That is a place of mediocrity and hardship. Look, we love to sell services because that gives us job satisfaction and job protection. Our kids don't need our services. Our kids need the truth and a place of belonging. Thank you.
Great job, Jeremy.
Thank you.
Yeah. So thank you. A very powerful presentation. I'm wondering, who are you really hoping to direct this message at? Are you hoping this is a message that will reach the policymakers at the very top, the folks in the trenches at the work? Who really needs to hear what you just said?
I think the leaders of the nonprofit sector and the charitable sector, because we are quick to identify problems as being outside our control. This is one problem that we can control.
Great. Thanks so much, Jeremy.
Thank you.
Great job.